It's NFL week number 12, and we give you our 3 best bets for this Sunday, and it all starts right now. Hey guys, it's Matt from GrandstandBettors.com, and we have 3 more of our best bets for NFL week number 12. Before we get into our breakdown of those matchups, just a reminder, if you're new to Grandstand Bettors, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our free picks and predictions all season long. While you're at it, smash that like button if you had a great Thanksgiving. I know we did. We actually went 2-1 on our Thanksgiving Day pick video. So without further ado, let's dive into this week's NFL Week 12 Sunday best bets. First matchup we're going to look at is between the Tennessee Titans and the red-hot New England Patriots. That's in the 1 p.m. time slot. Patriots are favored by a touchdown. The over-under here is set at 43.5. Now the Titans, they're 8-3. They're actually in the number 1 seed in the AFC. And in the AFC South, they have a 2-game lead over the Colts. Now they're coming off an awful loss last week to the Houston Texans, 22-13. It's crazy. This team, of their 3 losses, they lost to the Jets and the Texans this year. Now, Ryan Tannehill, he threw for over 323 yards on 52 pass attempts, but the story of the game was his 4 interceptions last week. It's really been Tannehill's downfall all season long, protecting the ball. He has thrown for over 2,600 yards, but really, this passing first mentality only happened since Derrick Henry went out for the season. Tennessee has a bottom half passing offense, but really, to be fair to them, they have dealt with wide receiver injuries all season long, and finally now it looks like they might have some healthy bodies. Although Brown is questionable for this week, but it does appear that he is trending to play. Now the Titans, which have to lean on a very heavy passing attack, will take on a top 6 passing defense in the Patriots, whom have only given up around 211 yards per game through the air. Now, you would think that the Titans would lean on a rushing attack as they are ranked 5th in the NFL. However, all that was with Henry. Since he's been out, they are the 6th worst rushing team in the league. It really doesn't matter as the Titans are going up a top 10 rushing defense as well. Patriots only giving up 101 yards per game on the ground. So we expect the Titans this week to throw the ball again a lot against these Patriots. Now, the Patriots, on the other hand, they come into this game 7-4, tied atop the AFC East with the Bills, and the Bills do have a game in hand in that situation. Last Thursday night, the Patriots blanked the Falcons 25-0, and Mac Jones continues his race for Rookie of the Year. Last week hasn't been as great as others for Mac Jones, as he only threw for 207 yards and a TD, but again, he manages the game well. He went 22-26 overall. And on the season, he's got 2,500 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. The most impressive thing that we think about Mac Jones in our mind is how he goes through his progressions to find that open receiver. With rookie quarterbacks, you find most of the time they latch onto one player that maybe they have a good connection with in practice, and then that transfers over to the game. Jones, however, has thrown to 6 different receivers whom all have over 200 yards on the season. The one standout is that in and around the red zone, Hunter Henry seems to be his go-to guy. Guy has 7 touchdowns on the season already. He should have another good game this week as the Titans secondary is not great. They're ranking in the bottom third of the league, giving up 253 yards per game. Damian Harris and Stevenson out of the backfield have also helped lighten the load for Jones, combined for over 900 rushing yards. And although they gained a lot of yards on the season, they have not gained a lot of yards on the season. They do, however, average over 4 yards a carry, and that really helps build that well-balanced attack with a rookie quarterback in Mac Jones. Now, this game may be a little hard for these two, as the Titans are actually ahead of the Patriots in rush defense. They're only giving up 97 yards on the ground. But overall, these two could potentially meet in the playoffs this year. But without Derrick Henry, the Patriots will continue to be the favorite, and they probably do have the edge in this one. Now, the spread's at 7 for the Patriots, and we think that's a lot of points to be giving up to a team that's going to throw the ball 50-plus times. And although the Patriots defense has only given up 13 points in the last 3 games, let's be honest, that was against Matt Ryan, Sam Darnold, and a Browns team that didn't have Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt and was starting Baker Mayfield. Both of these teams may combine in the game to throw the ball 80 times, and we expect there to be a lot of scores, especially if Brown and Jones can be on the field for this one. Look, with that much passing and the pace of play at an all-time low in this game, we like as our first pick of NFL Week number 12, Titans Patriots over 43.5. Now, with our second pick of week number 12, we're going to look at the Pittsburgh Steelers-Cincinnati Bengals matchup, again in the 1 p.m. Eastern time slot. Bengals are favored here by 3.5, and the over-under is at 44.5. Steelers coming into this one third in the AFC North with a 5-4-1 record, but are coming off a tough loss out west to the LA Chargers, 41-37. Roethlisberger, who came back from COVID last week, 28 of 44 for 273 and 3 touchdowns. Now, Big Ben, he got off to a slow start this season, but has really come on in the last 5 games he's played. In those games, he has a 65% completion rate, 9 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions with 1,200 yards passing. Some of this can be attributed to Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool being healthy, making some big plays. Those two nearly have 100 receptions and 1,200 yards on the season. Now look for Big Ben and this great wide receiver core to continue to air it out against the Bengals secondary that is giving up 250 passing yards per game. Steelers had very high hopes coming into the season with their rushing attack with drafting Najee Harris, but it's kind of been a grind all season long with this guy. He only has 685 yards on the season, only averaging 3.6 yards per carry. However, he has been a nice addition out of the backfield in their passing game, becoming the 3rd best receiver on the team. Big Ben loves to check down to this guy. He's averaging 7 yards per catch out of the backfield. We don't expect anything else to change this week in the rushing game for the Steelers, as the Bengals are giving up less than 100 yards on the ground per game. Speaking of those Bengals, they come in 6-4 on the year, just 1 game out of first place in the AFC North behind the Ravens. They're coming off a great bounce-back win last week against the Las Vegas Raiders after they were destroyed the week before that by the Cleveland Browns. Now, Joe Burrow in his sophomore year looking great this season, 2,600 yards passing and 21 touchdowns. He actually opened up this year with 8 straight games with multiple passing touchdowns, but since then has slowed down a bit, only 1 TD over the last 2 games, and is coming into this game off the lowest production of the season, only throwing for 148 yards last week. He's going to look to get back on track in this week against a very mediocre secondary in Pittsburgh, and will hope to get Jamar Chase involved again. Chase has seen his production really die down after that 200-yard receiving game against the Ravens a month ago. Since then, the guy's only had 12 receptions, 113 yards, and 1 TD in the last 3 weeks. Now, in fairness to Burrow and Chase last week, the offense did not need to throw the ball. They leaned heavily on the rushing attack with Joe Mixon, who had 30 carries, 123 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and the defense played out of their mind. They caused 2 turnovers and only allowed 278 total yards to the Raiders. They might do the same this week with their rushing attack, as Pittsburgh has the 6th worst rushing defense in the NFL, giving up 126 yards on the ground per game. Overall, this is the 2nd time these two are facing each other this season, with the Bengals beating the Steelers 24-10 the first time around. The final score of that game, though, was a bit misleading, as there were over 600 total yards of offense, but turnovers really hurt both teams on either side of the field, and it ended up being a very low-scoring game. Big Ben seems to be in much more of a rhythm now, having won 4 of his last 5 starts and not turning the ball over since the beginning of October. Now, with the opportunity to feast on the secondary of the Steelers and the Bengals using a great balanced attack, starting with Mixon against a bad rushing defense, we see this playing out again with maybe over 600 total yards of offense. The only difference this time, both quarterbacks protect the ball and score at will. So, with our second pick of NFL Week number 12, we're going to take the Steelers-Bengals over 44.5. Now, with our final pick for week number 12 in the NFL, we're going to look at the matchup between the LA Chargers and the Denver Broncos. Kickoff for this game is in the 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern time slot. The spread is 2.5 in favor of the Chargers, and the over-under is set at 48. Chargers coming in this one after a huge Sunday night win last week against those Steelers we just talked about, putting them 6-4 on the year. With this win, that would put them in a tie for first in the AFC West division with the Kansas City Chiefs. However, really the only reason they're in this position at this point in the season is because of their offense. They rank 8th in the NFL in yards per game, and the offensive coordinator, Joe Lombardi, has done a phenomenal job of mixing up their offensive scheme between Herbert's ability to pass the ball and their rushing attack led by Austin Eckler. Now, they had Pittsburgh's defense running all over the field last week, and a big reason for that was Justin Herbert extending plays with his legs. He rushed for over 90 yards last week on 9 carries, and coming into this game, the Chargers have to have a lot of confidence against a Denver front seven, which has not really been great recently. They gave up 216 rushing yards to the Eagles 2 weeks ago and are now giving up 110 rushing yards per game after a very decent start to the season. Their secondary is very good, however, ranking 10th in the NFL, and this is certainly going to be a very good test for Herbert, Allen, and Williams. However, if you look at the stats for the Broncos' pass defense a little bit more, they're a bit deceiving. The better teams in the league that the Broncos have played, in the likes of the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Raiders, those teams have all put up a combined 900 passing yards against the Broncos. This is a very good group of wide receivers and tight ends, and we think the Broncos secondary is really going to struggle to defend the pass game against Herbert and the Chargers. Now, as we mentioned last week in our video when we broke down the Chargers-Steelers game, the way opponents are going to win games against the Chargers is ultimately they can outscore the Chargers' offense. Now, the Chargers' defense has just been awful this season. They're giving up 26 points per game and are ranked last in run defense. The Broncos have a solid dual threat behind Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, which can be a problem for this Chargers defense. However, despite these two backs, the Broncos are only averaging 111 yards rushing per game. This is really because defenses, they're coming into the games prepared for the run more so than the pass and are essentially testing Bridgewater's ability to throw the ball. They're saying, hey, Bridgewater, go ahead. We're going to let you beat us and no one else. Now, this has worked out for teams with good secondaries, and the Chargers are one of those teams that have good secondaries. They have the 5th best secondary in the league, and although Bridgewater has looked better than most recent Denver quarterbacks, he has not looked good enough to beat a secondary with the likes of this Chargers one. The Broncos are just lacking offensive weapons to stick the Chargers in this game. The line in this game is probably factoring in the fact that the Broncos had a bye week, definitely home field advantage, and maybe that the Chargers are coming in this game very hot after they put up 41 points against the Steelers and are making a push for the playoffs. It's going to make that line probably go up to 3.5, 4 near game time. Although the Broncos, though, are still sort of in the hunt, this one is really much more of a must-win game for the Chargers if they want to make the playoffs. And let's be honest, they have the better team in this matchup. So with all that being said, our final pick for Week 12 in the NFL is Chargers minus 2.5 over the Broncos. Now, Grandstand Bettors, we're going to be doing a live stream this week for Sunday Night Football between the Cleveland Browns and the Baltimore Ravens. So join us Sunday night for some play-by-play and live betting. Also, remember, we are on Patreon. The link is below in the description. If you're looking for a sports pick each and every day, head on over to our Patreon. It's $6.99 a month and support Grandstand Bettors channel. Also, if you have not joined our Grandstand Bettors family, head on over to grandstandbettors.com, become part of our family, and start living that Grandstand life. But, as always, sit back, relax, enjoy NFL week number 12, and we'll see you next time.